Welcome back to this episode of the Real Change Agent Podcast. I am your host, Tim McBride. You know, I carry many titles. I am a real estate professional, but I also like to brand myself as the change agent, someone that's stepping up every day to elevate my standard of service to not just meet the needs of my clients, but also my community at the same time. You know, I believe there's a beautiful connection with real estate and the needs of our cities, and I'm on a mission to help build those bridges and create those stories and allow people to be more aware of what's happening in our cities, and real estate's that phenomenal vehicle to allow us to do it. And I'm also the founder of Homes for Good, and I started this podcast a couple years ago, and the intention was to sit down and meet with leaders, thinkers, and people that I identify as agents of change within their roles that are doing more, stepping up and elevating their standard of service beyond just the expectation of their job title. And through that, I've just been around such incredible stories. And today, I'm really excited about this one because I feel like I don't even have to talk. There's a gentleman sitting across the table from me that is full of passion and has these visions and dreams to impact so many lives. And he's already doing it. And he's doing it in a lot of different capacities. This man wears so many different hats and is constantly pouring in to his community through the different roles that he has. And he is full of passion. He's full of, ideas, and he's a creative, brilliant mind and speaks words that I can't even communicate. So eloquent in how he presents himself, how he performs, and how he engages his marketplace. The intentionality behind it is phenomenal. And now I have the honor not just to be in friendship with him, but I have the opportunity to be aligned with him in business, as he's recently joined us at a Real Brokerage. But we're really not here to talk about Real, the brokerage. We're here to talk about what real estate can be, not necessarily for our clients, but for people within the community that are looking to, up themselves and get themselves in a better position in life. Community development's a big part of what we're going to be talking about today. He's got his own nonprofit, Casa, Community Development Corp, that I'm going to allow him to talk about, because what he's doing in that is incredible. And more people need to be aware of what you're doing. And I think with Real, the relationships we're going to have access to, more people are going to hopefully help pour into some of these initiatives and programs you're building out, to build community financial literacy and put people in a position to have the opportunity to purchase a home from the first-time home buyer experience standpoint.
Yes, sir.
So without saying any more, I'm ready to have Tomás Stanton here start talking, because this guy's full of information and full of passion, and he's going to inspire you in a lot of ways. I guarantee it, because he does it to me, in a lot of different ways, from just sitting back and watching. I'm kind of going to do the same here. And, as you speak, buddy, I am going to find questions. I'm going to continue to kind of lean into some of the things you're saying. But before we kind of get into all the details, I'd love for you to introduce yourself, kind of share a little bit of your journey, your connection to our city. We'll talk about Casa Community Development Corp, kind of what that represents and how that ties into your real estate. Mm-hmm. And we'll go from there. So Tomás, please. Say hello.
Well, thank you. First of all, thank you for having me here, man. I feel the same way about you. So, like minds and like energies. So I am a Phoenix native, born and raised in downtown Phoenix, Arizona, what is now considered, it's always been considered the Coronado neighborhood. I think it's a very interesting neighborhood, given the journey that I've had with that neighborhood, right? And this kind of ties into my why and why I do what I do, right? So when I was younger, I was a part of this community. And it was really like a working class. So I'm 43 years old, just for context purposes. So this is like, the mid 80s, kindergarten to, fourth grade. It was a working class neighborhood, right? Very diverse families. My grandparents on my mom's side owned a home in the Coronado, and that's where we lived at with my mom. And at some point in the 90s, right, you started to see people wanting, if you're familiar with Coronado and the historical neighborhoods, the houses are really small, right? Yeah. So families wanted more real estate. And so that was when the suburbs started to kind of like blossom. And so, families started to move out. And it left our community kind of desolate. The folks that stayed there were the folks that didn't have the resources or opportunities to kind of, or upward mobility to move on to something bigger and better, right? And during that time, from like the 90s to the mid 2000s, it turned into a really, really violent neighborhood, right? There was a lot of gang activity. It was under-resourced. And, it was at that time that I realized, without really knowing, the importance of a vibrant, resilient community, right? Because it is without that, what you really have is a free fall, and really you're just hoping that the families in these communities can somehow figure it out and better their lives, right? And for me, I like to consider where I'm at now a blessing and luck for whatever reason, because a lot of my friends didn't make it out of the neighborhood. I've quite a few friends who have passed, right, for various different reasons. I've had friends who have been incarcerated, and I'll say that just on a label alone, you hear those things and you think, oh, bad person, right? My friends are some of the greatest people I've ever met, and I've met a lot of people. It's just that the environment that we were kind of surrounded by didn't provide us the opportunities, the education, the access to things that would allow us to prosper in life. And so from that is really where all of my passion comes into play. And I feel like I have this very unique kind of intersection of three things. One is education, because to me, education is one of the most important tools that we can provide to people to allow them the opportunity, right? The other one to me is real estate, because real estate is a home, it's an opportunity, it is a foundation. There is so much research that shows that home ownership is one of the most effective ways to fight against intergenerational poverty, right? And then the third thing is community engagement, right? And that's kind of more of we know what education is, we know what real estate is, but what is community engagement? And to me, it's basically, how do you connect people? How do you connect people of a community together? Not so that they may all think and believe in the same things, but have a common bond together that allows them to work together to take ownership of their specific community. And so those are the three things that I really focus on. Real estate being kind of the new-ish, and I say newish because I had my real estate license back in 2006. Had everyone knows the first year in real estate is you're hoping, wishing, praying.
There's a lot
to
of hope.
survive, And I feel like I got through my first year just in time for the big 2008 crash, right? And then it just, I wasn't in a position to sustain. And in a way, in hindsight, I'm grateful, because it was at that moment that I shifted my career from real estate to community engagement, youth development, community development. And for the last 15 years, I've really been focusing in those areas and have built some really strong organizations and nonprofits, and done a lot of work. But for me, the one thing that has always been missing from that secret sauce of gumbo, right, is that real estate component. And I don't know what happened, but a year ago I decided I was going to get my real estate license, and here I am now. I'm licensed again. I'm with Real, which I'm really excited about, and Casa Community Development Corporation is kind of the culmination, or not culmination, but it is the merging of all three of those things that I talked about: education, real estate, and engagement.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I'm not a native, right? I have two boys that now can claim that.
Nice.
But I came here and, for college in 2001 and just was, living in a bubble of ASU, trying to get my degree and get out.
Yeah.
My intention, California, I'm going to be that agent. I'm going to work my way up the ladder. Arizona was never on my radar as a place I was going to ever consider home. And when I got brought back here in 2015 with the company that I had started, these historical districts were kind of these trending conversations that I noticed. And I would love your perspective on that, because as I got into real estate, again, I would hear more and more about these historical neighborhoods and trying to, continue to keep the legacy of these homes intact, the neighborhoods intact. But from what I'm hearing, the journey of these communities isn't as prosperous as a lot of these conversations are making them out to be.
Yeah.
So how do you, I guess, engage with these types of dialogues that are, kind of celebrating these neighborhoods that really are so much more than just a really cool home, but have a sense of community, have a culture, have human beings that live in these homes that have been there for years, sometimes generations, and are giving everything they have to keep them thriving?
Yeah. So I think what's really beautiful about the historical neighborhood that I grew up in, the Coronado, like I said, in the 80s, it was very diverse. You had Latino families, you had black families, you had white families. We all kind of grew up together. And, I didn't really think anything of it. These were just my friends and my people, right?
Yeah.
And then when you started to see folks moving out, right? What was left behind were a lot of the, marginalized communities, right? So the African American community, the Latino community, and they took and created these spaces and made them their communities, right? Because they didn't have the opportunity, right? So the neighborhood that I live in, that I grew up in, and I still live there. That's the craziest thing is that
was my next question. You're still there.
My wife, who also grew up in the neighborhood with me, we bought her childhood home from her parents, right? Which is a whole, recipe of why I'm inspired in building generational wealth and preserving these communities. But what's really beautiful is that, it became very culturally rich. Even though there was a lot of danger and violence, it was still very culturally rich. Then when you started to see folks wanting to come back into the neighborhood, right, the more trendy, two things happened, right? One is as supply and demand work and popularity, you start to see the home prices start to increase little by little by little, right? What's really important to think about is, generally speaking, right, the folks that live in the community now, it's still very diverse and still very mixed, but the folks that are coming in, right, generally have a little more access to wealth, knowledge of wealth, right, income, and they generally are more white families, right? And for me, just for reference, I'm both. My dad is Latino, my mom is white, right? So I see both sides of it. And what's beautiful is that you do generally see like a mixture of these cultures, right? An evolution of these cultures coming together, right? Where my neighbor across the street from where I live right now doesn't speak any English. I don't speak not enough Spanish I could say, hola, ¿cómo estás? ¿Qué estás haciendo? I got enough Spanish to get myself in trouble, right? Yeah. But I see her every day. We wave at each other. You know what I mean? We have this common bond that we are both in this community together. And I think that's important, right? Because I don't believe families and communities should be segregated, right? I think we should figure out how to celebrate the rich cultures that we all bring to the table, right?
Yeah.
But you have to address, like, the one issue is that the folks moving back in and bringing up the home values are bringing a certain set of tools and wealth that the community members that are there don't have, and then that creates an opportunity for displacement, right? I know I want to hear your next question, but the one thing I want to say is, like, this was really important to me when I heard this. Because what I just explained, a lot of people would call gentrification, right?
Correct.
And I heard from an African-American individual, I think the context matters of who this individual was, saying that he doesn't believe in gentrification because it's not gentrification that is displacing his people, right? It is the lack of knowledge and tools that his people has that is causing them to be displaced. So if they had the education and the tool and the knowledge and the access to the financial resources, then they would not be displaced, right? And that really inspired me because I don't want to ignore gentrification, but I want to say, let's not look at the negative and let's look at what we can do. What is the opportunity? How can we provide financial literacy and opportunities to people so they are not displaced, so that we can have these very vibrant, diverse communities?
Wow. I think, what I love about this is the fact that you still call the neighborhood home. Right? So you're living your experiences, you're seeing both sides of the conversation, and you're able to relate to both. I think that's huge. So often I don't think we have that capacity. We just hear ourselves talk, we hear our own voices, and we think that that's going to be received the same way we receive it. And that's just not accurate. So as you've seen this opportunity, I love that, being there, being able to see everything taking place and the history you have there and the understanding, you saw an opportunity. What was the first step that you took to lean into that? Because you talk about education a lot. Is education start elementary school? Is that what we're talking? Are we talking, after high school, from the university level and beyond, when you're a young adult, like where are the resources, where are the platforms of education that create financial literacy, create opportunities for economic development and growth? I'd love to understand.
I think you can. I think you can start it at a very young age. So I have a 6-year-old, and I also have a 15-year-old and an 18-year-old. So it's interesting that my conversations around finances and how money works and the importance of it is different for each one of those individuals. But like, I believe I'm not just telling my 6-year-old, like, when you get older and you understand, we'll talk about it. I try to explain economics to him at a very early age, because I think it is planting those seeds little by little, right? So that by the time they do become adults and they're out into the world and they're starting to see it for themselves, it starts to make sense for them a lot quicker, right? Because they're like, oh, I understand this because I was raised in a household that taught me about economics, right? So one of the things that, and this is, so I think it starts in schools for sure. I think it absolutely should be at home, but if you don't have those tools at home, then how are you going to do that? And that's where like community development comes in. And I think it's never too old to start to learn about money. And I'll use my mom as an example, because my mom was a single mother. She raised us, my brother and I. We lived with my grandparents who had a home. My mom never owned a home, still doesn't to this day, right? And I was very fortunate, my brother and I, when we were growing up, to be able to go to a community center. It was an after school, so the Boys and Girls Clubs, right? Yeah. So we went to school, we went to the community center, we hung out with our friends, we went home and rinse and repeat, right? Yeah. And that was great for me, but like, what was the opportunity for my mom at that time to also have an opportunity for education and development, right? My mom was just like, oh, this is a place for my kids to go and for them to have some, extracurriculars that were free and affordable. And then my mom was just sitting at home thinking about what? I don't know, right? But she wasn't being provided an opportunity to learn about financial literacy, to figure out how to buy a house. And I think, my mom could have bought a house in Coronado for dirt cheap, right? If somebody had provided an opportunity for her to figure that out. Okay. And now at the age, my mom's almost 70, and she could be a millionaire, really. I mean, these houses in Coronado are like going for like millions of dollars, some of them. Insane. It's insane, right? Yeah. And so like, I look at that missed opportunity from my mom to be able to have built generational wealth. But I asked myself, yes, we did the Boys and Girls Club. We created the Youth Development Center. But what about the opportunities for the adults, right? And I think that when you talk about education, it starts as early as it can. Yeah. But we should not neglect the fact that someone who is 35 or 40 who hasn't been taught these skills, we should still be working with them as well, especially if they have kids that they're raising, because that's what helps to create generational wealth instead of generational poverty. Yeah. Yeah.
What is so awesome about this is, I think, being in our industry, real estate, we get so focused on our responsibilities to a client, right? Mm-hmm. And I think we like to scratch the surface of providing, information and knowledge and education on the buying experience, and, find that perfect lender so you understand your numbers, your economic situation, what you can and can't afford, to position yourself to be financially secure as you move in. But you're taking it another level deeper. And one thing I love about this is that you have built out a system that, as a real estate agent, I know for myself, if I'm working with a first-time home buyer that, is in a position where it's a challenge, I can now, in a sense, as we get into Casa a little more, be able to bring more resources to the table. Be like, sit them down in front of an opportunity to better educate themselves about creating financial freedom for themselves through the opportunity of real estate, what that could represent short-term and long-term, right?
Yep.
I think that's another part of it is we're very short-term in our thinking. Real estate's a long play. And I love that you talk about generational wealth. Like, I'm a father, I have 3 kids, and the fact that, I own real estate and can have that as an asset for them as we grow older is huge. And there's some peace of mind that comes with that. It doesn't have to be an expensive property. It can be anything. But if equipping people with that information, more information than just talk to a lender, but here's some other resources too to help you understand the capacity of financial literacy, real estate, and all these, and the community development side. And I think that's a part, because I talk about a lot with clients, is like, find the perfect home, but if you don't love the community you're in, you're not going to want that home, right? And that the nonprofit side has allowed me to explore kind of deeper into these communities and educate my clients on, what is happening around them that they might not necessarily be aware of. But you're taking it again to another level, and I'm excited to better understand it so that I can just have more tools for my clients to better understand options available to them, better equip them with information, and empower them to kind of invest in themselves more. Yeah. Right? And so Casa, tell us about it a little more.
Yeah. So Casa really is this like dream of mine, and it always has been. So when I had my license back in 2006, right before the epic crash, I had started an LLC called Affordable Home Solutions, because I knew that what I wanted to do with real estate was help people become first-time home buyers, because I know the importance of it and I know how difficult it is, right? And so obviously the market crashed, everything fell apart around me, and I kind of put that to the wayside. But when my wife and I purchased our first home, which was 5 years ago, right? And her parents, so my wife's family's from Aguascalientes, it's in Mexico, right? They came to America, right? And never have made more than minimum wage as workers. And they both just retired. And a big part of the reason why they were able to retire is because they bought real estate. Somehow, some way, it was during that time where prices were dirt cheap because people were getting stabbed in the Coronado, right? They bought real estate. They bought the house that we live in now. They bought the house that they live in now. They bought an investment property and then another investment property. So they had a total of 4 properties, right? Wow. And when we bought our first home, I wanted to actually leave the neighborhood, right? I wanted to go to South Scottsdale, to be honest with you. I was like, I don't want to raise my kids in this environment, plus the houses are way too expensive here and they're really small, and how are we going to afford it? And we were looking at houses in South Scottsdale, and at the same time, my in-laws were trying to sell the home that we're in now that we eventually bought, and it needed a lot of work, right? But because the values were so high, they were trying to sell it for much higher than what somebody was willing to pay for it. Yep. Sat on the market for like 6 months. They started losing money because they were still paying their mortgage on it. They got to a point where they almost lost that property. And I talked to my wife and I said, you know what? We need to figure out how to buy this property. But also we need to figure out how to not just buy it, but buy it in a way that allowed for our in-laws to still make some profit off of it. Because let's be honest, right? We could have said, hey, you're not going to sell this property, you're going to lose it. You need to give it to us for dirt cheap, right? I didn't want to do that because they worked really hard to be able to preserve that. But what we did and what we found out was you were able to gift equity. So they gifted us some of the equity that we were able to use for the down payment, which allowed us to bump. So income-wise, we could afford more, but we didn't have enough for a down payment. So they gifted us some of the equity so that we can bump the loan up, which then allowed them to get still more after the gift that they gave us. So it was a win-win for everyone. We bought that home. We were able to help them transfer wealth from that property into the other property. But what really, really, really tripped me out was that we were now raising our family in the home that my wife grew up in. And it was like, it clicked for me. I was like, this is beautiful, actually, that we're able to pass down our real estate to the next generation. And so now, and it's crazy because when we bought that home, we bought it for $350,000. It's 5 years ago. The last time it appraised for almost $900,000, which is crazy to me because it's still relatively weird neighborhood, right? But, and a part of my brain is like, hey man, you could sell this, take that equity, and you can maybe move to mid Scottsdale, maybe not South Scottsdale. You can go to mid Scottsdale, live the dream. But also I'm like, or I can figure out how to leverage this property to pass it on to my kids, use it to maybe buy an investment property. And so all these things started to click. And then that's when I realized, like, one, there's a lot of stuff that I don't know, right? So I had to learn it on my own. That was step one. And when I started to learn it on my own, I said, wouldn't it be amazing if we had an organization that taught these tools to people so that they can not only buy their homes, right, preserve their homes, build generational wealth. And that's what happened with Casa, right? That's where I was like, we need to create a nonprofit that does these three things. So for us, Casa is education, it's community engagement, community revitalization, affordable housing, and generational wealth development. It is those steps to help people become first-time home buyers, and then to eventually create this continuum. Because one of the things that we run into, and I'm sure you know this, right? For first-time home buyers, there's not a lot of opportunities out there, And the only reason why we were afforded the opportunities is because our in-laws gifted us equity. So I'm in this weird space where it's like, how can I create investors who understand the importance of both creating a profit for themselves and their families, but also being generous and giving some of that profit to another family so that they can have that first step, right? And so I'm hoping as Casa grows and the clientele of Casa grows, that we can maybe build a network of investors that are willing to figure out how to create creative solutions for first-time home buyers. Because, and I'm not asking somebody to donate 100% of their equity, but like, could you help gift someone? Because that's really where it comes down to. People can qualify income-wise, credit-wise, but they don't have the down payments because the average home cost is so much higher than what it used to be.
Correct. Yeah. And the gifting of equity, that you don't have to be family.
You don't.
Right. I think a lot of people assume that, but no, you don't.
You don't.
And I think just again, that type of information isn't typically readily available to people.
No.
And that's, someone as an agent and someone like yourself, now that you're in this other role, you can have that conversation. I understand a little more now. I can have that conversation with your client, with the listing side, if I'm representing the buyer. Listen, not only can my client afford the home, there's a few little hiccups, and it really comes down to the down payment, but there's an opportunity for a gift.
Yeah.
And if I can paint the story of how valuable my client is and the desire for that home, and that gets, properly communicated back to the seller, I guarantee more people will happily explore that option.
I think so.
Because they like just to look at the paperwork and the numbers. They don't hear the story. But I've closed a lot of homes by being able to paint the story of my client.
Yeah.
And when people can create that human connection on both sides, deals get done. And I think that's another piece that we can start to educate people on. Because like you said, the first-time home buyer right now is in a really tough spot.
Yeah.
You hate to say it, but the American dream is quickly becoming renting. And
it is.
We need to change that.
Well, and here's my plea to homeowners, right? Is that it really does affect all of us if the majority of us are struggling, right? At the end of the day, like, because the question would be like, why would I help somebody that I don't know, right? When I've worked hard for this and I can create as much wealth for myself and give it to my family. Totally understand that, right? I process that as well. As a family man, I process that. But like, if the gap between those that have and those that don't have continues to widen, those that have are going to suffer because it's just like we're all in this together. At the end of the day, we're all in this together, right? And so if we can all maybe just contribute a little bit, right? Not a lot, but a little bit to helping somebody get a leg up, right? Yeah. Then what we're doing is we're creating a better world for our kids to live in with the wealth that we pass on to them. Like that's just the way I look at it. So, I don't know. It seems simple to me, but I think we got a lot of work to do. But I'm committed.
I love it. You are, and that's why I'm just pumped to be sitting here with you. And how we connected is awesome. Just grateful for Dennis Gable, a good buddy of ours that made that connection. And you were helping me out with a creative project for my wife. And I'm just always amazed at how God works with people in my life. And we got brought together through Mesa Community Arts Center, doing a little voiceover of my vows to my wife on our 10-year anniversary, and I allowed you to kind of, from a poetic standpoint, kind of play with it a little bit. And it was an amazing piece, but you had shared a lot of your heart in the quick conversations we had of what you wanted to do, and you were exploring real estate. I'm just very happy that you continue to think of me when it was that time was right for you to get licensed, and where do I align myself with. So I'm excited just to be in alignment with you now in this space, and put as much as I can from the resources I have towards what you're doing. And as Homes for Good, in the next potentially week or so, we'll officially be a 501c3. We can be that conduit that allows money to flow, honestly, because 100% of it all will go to these organizations, to programs that are changing our cities and helping serve our cities. And what better way to support an organization from a real estate agent helping an organization is helping community and through real estate. That the ties are so strong there. So I'm excited to put it there. And but hearing you talk, I just want to share a little bit about this organization we helped last year. I think I told you a little bit about it because it's similar to what you're talking about, but through the relationship of sport. I know sport's something that's important to you, and you can talk a little bit of that as well. But I got introduced to this incredible servant leader. His name's Monte McFarland. And he coaches a group, youth football league, a team called the Arizona Champions. They're a 501c3. They play in South Phoenix. And none of he or his staff have kids on the team. They just pour into these kids every single day. They give them the platform of football to create what he calls opportunity for education, which in turn create economic development back in their communities. And these kids are 11, 12, 13 years old. And he came from an environment where, as you shared earlier, like when your surroundings are pulling you down, are basically not allowing you to thrive or have access to the resources you need to move forward in life, it's not necessarily your fault. It's what you're constantly being exposed to every day. He had a coach take him outside. He grew up in South Central LA, outside his environment, and said, you can have all of this. This is all available to you, but you need to surround yourself with the right people, coaches, mentors, and believe in yourself and have that drive. And he did. He traveled the world through, I think he was with the Navy, played basketball, actually never played football, came back, got coaching. Long story short, the team that he coaches is the number one team in the state. They were at one point the number 3 team in the country last year. They got an automatic bid to get to Florida to compete for a national championship. And he makes sure that there's no economic burden on the families because he wants these kids to have access to the game. It's a platform for them to, elevate their situation in life and have that opportunity to use sport as a vehicle to get access to education. And in turn, again, it comes back to the community, which makes it economically flourish. And we just got to stand beside them. And so every deal we did for 7 months to help them out, we helped them get to Florida. They won a championship. And as I sat with this guy, like he's in tears talking about how much he just wants these kids to have that opportunity. And he used this line, the ability to see beyond your block. And when you can see the opportunities that are behind your block, like the opportunities are limitless. But oftentimes what we see is telling us we're not worthy, we can't have it, we're not worth it. There's so many labels or stigmas or experiences that we have that kind of distract us. So he's just phenomenal at what he does. And to have the opportunity to pour into that and give these kids just a chance is awesome. And the more people that come around these types of programs is phenomenal. And I asked him, so where are these kids now that you've been coaching? Because he won't leave that age group for protection purposes. He wants to stay with and make sure, he's coaching and mentoring them. And because Arizona's open enrollment, he puts them in schools where they will get playing time. And so he won't go to the high school level because it becomes, very bureaucratic at that point. And his oldest group of kids that he's coaches are now seniors in high school. All of them have Division I scholarships. One kid, I think he said, had 22 full ride offers. And they are all now spreading their wings and going to go explore across the country opportunities that might not have been available if they didn't have the opportunity to use sport as a vehicle. And that story to me is how I want to use real estate. How can we use real estate as a vehicle to serve, to meet needs, not just of our clients, but of our community. And now to know that you're on my team, you've got a program that is building out these systems and resources to help people understand that real estate can be an asset that you have access to, and equipped with the knowledge and understanding. Like, we can, hopefully a lot of good can come from this, and our city will be strong.
Yeah, a lot of good will come from that, right? I know that because, and this is the hats off to you, because part of the reason why I'm even here, like in here literally at the podcast, but like as a part of Real, is because when I met you, like I know quite a few people in real estate, right? And they're all good people. But when I met you, the one thing that made you stand out was that you were not just, because there's a lot of people that contribute to things, right? 100%. They're like, I make money, I pay my tithes, I donate to this organization. But you were very intentional about doing it. It wasn't just, this is something that I do. This is a part of what I do, right? You created a platform for that, right? And that to me let me know right off the bat that you were somebody that I was going to align with in that area, because like we have to do more than just kind of privately or, you know, like, and there's value in being, you know, quiet about your donations. 100%. But there's also, if you have a platform and you can use your platform to create awareness around these things, like, because there's a lot of work to be done, you know? There really is. And that story that you told in that group, and, you know, like we need more programs like that. We need more. And what we also need is we need more mentors and people like that coach who are willing to sacrifice what they sacrifice. And as a person who once was on that side of things, it becomes extraordinarily exhausting. And it's very hard to sustain. And so that's one of the reasons why I kind of shifted from being the person who works in the community to someone who works, you know, with the community, right? Is because I didn't want to be the person that was continuing to ask and write grants and try to find money and things like that. Like it's just, it's exhausting. And so I was like, well, I need to get money so that I can give it. Oh, I want to be the person giving the money. Right. And so, so I think that story is amazing. I actually know some of the assistant coaches on that team. I didn't know that until I was talking to a friend of mine, and he was like, oh yeah, that's the such and such team. And he was like, well, my nephew played on that team. And I was like, oh, that's really crazy. So small world.
It is, man. And just to see, you know, sports always been something you've heard me say as a platform that does so much more to entertain us. Right. And to see, you know, this coach see that this is a platform that these kids can have, not just have access to help better them in their current situation, but it'd be a platform to elevate them in their future life, and just not allow, you know, the circumstances around them to interfere with that. Like when he said at my podcast, this was, I think, September, he showed up after working the county fair, the concert series. He brings a team out. They work till 2 a.m. because they get proceeds from the whole team. And he showed up at 8:30 in the morning ready to do a podcast, and he's just like, he just grinds. So that those kids have the opportunity that he knows is available to them, and he won't let them down, and he stays with them to from the educational standpoint. We make sure they're getting their grades. He makes sure that they're showing up to class. He's there mentoring, coaching, in a sense, being another outside of a parent to them to make sure that they're staying on the right path, because he had people do it for him, and he's just pouring back in these kids. And to see now that the work he's done is leading to these kids getting full rides like Duke, Oregon, and many others, that's amazing.
It is.
And like, I love that you said, I don't want to just work on it, I want to work with it, with the community, right? I think what you said there is powerful. And in our industry, oftentimes we're just working in our community. And in every industry, we're just working within our community. We're working within the lane that we see in front of us, and we're kind of, we don't know how to step outside of that and see the opportunities. And I think we get to be in relationship with people every single day in real estate. Why not build more bridges?
And one of the most important transactions someone's going to have in their life, right, is real 100%. Estate. That's something that I'm really, so part of, I'll be real transparent, like I'm a little nervous because I got my license and I have a very large platform, and like I was telling you already, I got potential clients already, which is a dream for someone who's had their license for a month. But I'm like, I need to make sure that I am surrounding myself with a team of people to really provide the best service possible, because this is one of the biggest transactions of most people's lives. And to take care of them through that, I think it's funny. When I was doing my contract class, the guy was saying, the instructor said, you know, real estate agents generally get a bad rap when you think about like how the profession is portrayed, right? And he brought up Phil Dunphy from Modern Family. He's like, most people think we're like, the Phil Dunphy, right? And it's like, dude, you are doing one of the most important things and helping somebody accomplish one of the most important things of their life. Like, we are so much more than Phil Dunphy, right? And so no diss to Phil Dunphy, but you know what I mean? It's an important industry to be in, and what a great opportunity we have in that industry to pay it forward and to do more. Because again, real estate it's more than a home, man. It is a community. It's a foundation. It's a building block for families to become something that they may not have had the opportunity to become had they not had somebody help them get into a home.
I couldn't agree more.
Yep.
I love the Phil Dunphy one.
Phil Dunphy. and
so many scenes go through your head.
Well, and I'll say, because this is beautiful for me, so thank you for having me, because I'm hoping that at least there'll be more people in the industry who will be like, hey, I like what that guy has to say. Let me follow him, right?
Yeah.
You'll find out real quick. It's so hard for me to be serious because I believe laughter is one of the most. I've been making these reels about why real estate is important, and if you see them, 50% of the reel is really serious. It's me telling you some really important things, and then I generally end it with me doing something very Phil Dunphy like, where I'm like, it's a balance, Yeah. I'm funny. I try to be a comedian too.
You are. I can honestly say that. I'm not just plugging you here. You are funny, man.
I try to be.
But the creativity is real in everything you do, and I think, and it comes from a sense of genuine purpose.
Yes.
You care about every little thing you're doing, and you do a lot of things. So
I do.
Props to you for your husband, your father. You've got responsibilities on that side, and you're still finding ways to pour into more and more lives outside of the family bubble. So it's an honor to kind of walk alongside you and learn from you, because there's going to be a lot I think we can do together, and I'm excited to plug you into the ecosystem of Real, because your vision is major.
Yeah.
And it doesn't just need to stay here. It needs to be spread across the country. And, being Canadian, it can go to Canada too.
Yeah.
Well, I am no longer Canadian. I am an American citizen. I'm proud to say it. But, the access now, I think that you being with Real will allow, hopefully will get people inspired to want to reach out and, give you advice, give you information, give you resources to help just elevate this platform that much quicker.
Yeah.
Because you can only do so much alone, right?
Oh, yeah.
And you got to surround yourself with the right people. I've been very protective of Homes for Good and the Change Agent brand for 5 years. And for the first time, I think ever, I've really felt confident enough in it to start wanting to bring more people in, because the intentionality of it is to serve. Mm-hmm. Is to give without the expectation of receive. Like with the football team coach on the podcast, one of his coaches like, why is he doing it? What does he want?
Yeah.
And the answer is nothing.
Yeah. I
see you. I love what you're doing, and I want to help.
Yeah.
Quietly from the sideline, just celebrate you.
Yeah.
Right. And, we've given them, I can't remember how much money we gave at the end of the day, but we closed 45 homes in a couple months.
Yeah.
About $5,000-$6,000 with matching. And that helped tickets, airfare tickets, accommodation, more. All that matters is that I get to see the result.
Yeah.
Because that's going to continue to want me to pour in more and more, because you're already living it, you're experiencing it, you've proven it. I want to continue to help you, man. You're just serving. And that's the more and more people are doing that, the more good that's going to come from your business, but more good that's going to start happening in your communities, and you're just going to be more inspired by the job that you have as a real estate agent.
Yeah. It does all work together. That's one thing that I am a firm believer is that, you put out into the world what you want, right? And I want for myself to be happy, to be healthy, to be prosperous. I want that for my family. So I have to put that out into the world to the best that I can. And I don't want, like you said, I don't want anything. This isn't a you scratch my back, I'll scratch your back, because it will happen, right? The good will come back when you're doing good in the world, right? And you may not know when it's going to come back, or, it comes back in different ways, right? There's a lot of different theology and things that you can say about that, but it's doing good in the world. And at the end of the day, when all people or most people are doing well and you are doing well, it's just better environment, right? That's who wants to be a millionaire when everyone's broke, dude? I want to hang out with people on the yacht. I don't want to be on the yacht by myself.
No. There we go.
There you go.
Comedy. I love it. I love it, man.
Yeah.
Well, I think you touched on something there. You want to be in relationship with people, right?
Yes.
So how do people get in touch with you? What are the best platforms for people to reach out to you?
So I'm very active on Instagram, Tomás J Stanton, and I have to say this because a lot of people think I'm just being fancy with my name, but it's actually Tomas J Stanton. And then I'm also on LinkedIn with Tomás J Stanton as well. Yep. Those are the two most primary platforms that I use. But then Casa is casacdc.org. So CASACDC.org. That's the platform for Casa. And yeah, you can follow Casa on Instagram as well.
And a lot of the programs that you're currently running, are they all over the valley? Are they one specific area? Are they in Coronado?
So I do believe in place-based community work, and what that generally means, it's really what it sounds like. It's like focusing on one area. Right now, I'm focusing majority of what I'm doing in the like what's called the Kenwood neighborhood, which is south of Coronado, just south of Coronado. It's where I live. Okay. And for me, it's twofold, right? It's because I live there. And also because I want to work from a small place to expand out, right? But with that being said, I currently have a client in the Maryvale area because it was somebody that I knew who reached out to me, and I'm kind of everywhere. Yeah,
you know, well, you're going to be in this industry.
Yeah, I'm kind of everywhere. You don't have a choice. But so yeah, I want to be able to take our kind of program and our philosophies to as many places as possible. So so reach out, man. And really, I would love feedback. I would love ideas and conversations, because it's through that kind of stuff where I am not an expert in anything other than caring probably way too much about things, right? Thing. But that's kind of how I grow, is through collaboration and conversations. So.
I love it. I can relate. I agree completely. Yep. Well, guys, I'm excited just personally because part of the reason I established this relationship with Real to make that jump was the connectivity with other agents, to try to build my network of change agents to do more, right? And I can't wait to bring Casa into the conversations of the organizations that I'm trying to reach, but also and put it in front of all these agents that are coming on as change agents.
Yeah,
you're a change agent already, hence the hat. If you're watching this, I am a collector of hats. I can go into why. It's a long story, but to me, it represents so much. It's a story. It's an honor to put something on. And as a sport, as an athlete growing up, the first thing people put on when they win a championship is a hat.
Their hat, yeah.
And it represents community. It represents responsibility, a brand, a team. So I love hats. I've just been collecting them. So Change Agent is the brand. Anyone that comes on, it's just a gift to say thank you. Yeah. And I see what you're doing, man. I love what you're doing, and you're building something special. And I think there's going to be a lot of resources available to you quickly, because we almost have 500 agents here in the Valley with Real that can quickly get behind, hopefully, what you're trying to accomplish and have something that they can input into what you're building, and we can do a lot of good.
The one thing, thank you. The one thing I'll say, and I think this is important, because there may be people out there who are like, because the market's tough right now, right? Correct. So they'll be like, hey, why would I bring this person to Casa when I know that Tomás is there and he's you know what I mean? Like, one, there's contracts and things that we can fill, but like Casa is separate from my real estate career. Correct. Like Casa is a place to help first-time home buyers. So if you're an agent and you have somebody that you're trying to work with, like, we want to provide those resources to you, and that has nothing to do with us like taking them on as a client. Like, it's separate. It is, for me, it works hand in hand, because as an agent and I have a client, like, I get to use Casa, and then when they're ready, I get to take them out and represent them within our team, right? Yeah. But if you're an agent, like, I don't want you to worry about that part. It's like Casa is separate. Like, it is a nonprofit. It has a board of directors, and we just want to help people become first-time home buyers. So if you're an agent and you have people that need that support, let us know.
I think that's huge, because so many people want to give, they don't know where. And this is if you're in the industry and want to kind of, put your dollars or time towards something that's going to benefit not just your brand, your experience, and your ability to be a better agent, this is going to be an awesome platform, because you're now going to be able to put resources towards programs that are informing people to be able to be in the game of real estate, to be able to make purchase, to better themselves in their future. So I think it's an easy way for people to quickly start educating themselves as well, how they can be better. But, put money and time, resources into programs that are local here. They're going to help people be in a better position to actually move forward in their dream of purchasing real estate and creating a home.
Yep.
So let's keep this conversation going, but please listen, follow, get in touch with Tomás, not Thomas.
Tomás Dunphy.
Tomás Dunphy. He is the man. He is a true change agent in our community. And when you sit with him, when you speak with him, you will be filled with the same amount of passion that he has. I guarantee it. I feel it and I see it every day when I watch you. And I'm grateful for your friendship. I'm grateful for you to be on the show. And I can't wait to try to put resources that I have available towards you so that you can continue to push this dream of yours into fruition. So thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here.
All right, brother. Thank you, man.
Have a good day.
You. Yep, you too.